Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Old Brother, a podcast about Salford/Manchester's legendary musical institution, The Fall. Each week we invite on a guest to chat about their experiences and memories of the group. You can find us at Spotify, Apple and all the usual suspects, but we're hosted at play.acast.com/s/Old Brother. All episodes are also available on YouTube. Search for Old Brother Podcast and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. This week we're joined by journalist, author, cookbook writer, musician and fall aficionado Luke Haines. Hope you enjoy it. Hello, welcome to the latest edition of Old Brother, a podcast about the fall with me, Paul Hanley, and my much more famous brother, Stephen. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening.
And we're delighted to be joined this evening by musician, author, artist. Anything else? I think that's quite enough. Mr. Luke Haines. Good evening.
Thank you. Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I was going to say, what does it say on your passport? Well, people always say that, but it hasn't given.
Doesn't say anything. Doesn't say anything, does it? You don't have to say anything. Yeah.
You don't have to say what your job is. I don't know if you ever did, to be honest.
No,
I can remember having musician on my passport years.
Oh, you do realise it's an offence to lie on an official document. Yeah, tell me, Steve, you hit them up, I'll nod them in. How's that?
You've been working on that one, haven't you?
And so that's the last time it'll sound like we've rehearsed anything for the whole and that didn't sound that convincing.
That sounded like loads of sibling rivalry. That's just like exploding.
That's the whole point of the podcast is just it's cheaper than therapy.
Very good.
Right, so Luke Haines, from the you were in the Servants.
I was, yeah.
That was your first band, is that right?
Yeah, it was, yeah. Mm.
Yeah, and then the Alters, famously. Yeah. And then Black Box Recorder. It's not easy to say that. And then Minoff, of course. Yeah. So what's normally the first thing we ask at this? So when was the first time you came across The Fall then?
Okay, well, I'm an only child, as might be kind of evident from some of the things I put out. So I didn't have older brothers or sisters or anything like that to kind of get me into music. But I had older cousins, and one of my cousins was a couple of years older than me. Is a couple of years older than me, and had a sort of like he was kind of getting into kind of punky stuff around about 1980, 81, and he did a tape for me. One side of it was Crass, and the other side was the compilation Early Fall. And so I must have been about 14. And it just the Early Fall compilation, from the minute that repetition starts, just got me. And I was there. Right. I was in for life.
It's a life sentence. So
it is, yeah.
So what's on Early Fall is the Step Forward stuff, is it?
It is, yes. It's the first three Step Forward singles.
Right, okay.
Great. It's a great compilation. I kind of still think, because there's that old cliche about the first Fall album is your favourite.
Yeah.
In some ways that is, because it doesn't even seem like a compilation to me.
Right. Okay. Because that's surprising, because there's a fair number of different kind of lineups on that. So does that sound like of a piece to you then? Because that'll be the Witch Trials lineup and the Roast Rumble lineup.
Well, I didn't realise I didn't really, because I wasn't. Well, for a long time, I wasn't kind of a person that was completely into all the kind of sleeve notes, and obviously the full ones are usually fairly inaccurate anyway as to who's doing what. And I just sort of took it that there's like 5 people. There's Mark, Carl, Steve, and is it Craig? And then there's Kay, I think, in it. So I just thought that was. I sort of probably thought that Kay was Unibanes or Evil. I just thought the 5 people, like with the Beatles or something like that.
No, because I'm just for me they sound, because I was a fan of The Fall, and then. And I was probably about the same age as you, probably slightly older than you, but they sound like 2 completely different bands to me. The band that made Bingo Masters Breakout and the band that made Roast Rumble. So I have to ask you.
That's strange, because obviously it sounds the difference between the bands on like Witch Trials and then Dragnet is kind of seems really, really, that seems really different, and obviously there's the sound of Dragnet, which I've got actually. I've got to ask Steve actually about Dragnet because I've always wanted to know about was it meant to sound like that? Was it actually meant to sound like that? Is it kind of a happy accident of?
I was gonna that was going to be my exact words. I think it was a happy accident. It was a fairly decent equipped studio in Rochdale. And
what happened?
Grant Shelby's.
Yeah. No, I mean I think it's fan. I mean it sounds fantastic. But it sounds like
I think when you get your live sound man to do it in the studio, and we were all learning.
Yeah,
you know, we were. I mean, it was pretty much my first time and Craig's first time in the studio, and we were all learning, and Grant was learning as well.
But it does sound. I mean, it sounds unlike any other record ever recorded.
It does,
which is
sorry, I was going to say because pretty much Live at the Witch Trials and Dragnet were both 5 people or 5 or 6 people in a room for a couple of days.
Yeah,
the difference in sound is just mad, isn't it? Given it's the same, aesthetic, if you like.
Yeah. But I never, it's sort of like difficult to imagine how. I find it difficult to imagine how anyone managed to record something like Spectre versus Rector, and it sounds like that, and then they actually had the fucking balls to put it out. I mean that in a complimentary way because it's just amazing. It's like it's sort of fairly stunning.
The first half of Spectre versus Rector is on a cassette, isn't it? In the rehearsal room, I think.
Yeah. It was recording at some warehouse in Manchester, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah. And it's great. Yeah.
Brave move to put it out on there now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I tell you what, so we did Dragnet, and then fairly shortly after we went to a studio in Wales and did Fiery Jack.
Yeah, right.
And when we were listening back to the mixes of that, it did kind of dawn on us that bloody hell, Dragnet.
What have we done? And Mark as well, you think, Steve?
Yeah. I remember sitting around at Mark's with Kay and listening to the mixes of Fiery Jack, and it's dead bright and dead clear, isn't it? And
it is, yeah.
Where we were thinking, this is total opposite to the album.
Yeah. That's interesting, yeah.
It's because it seems, I think the sound of Fiery Jack has kind of dated more than Dragnet in a way.
Well, yeah.
Well, Dragnet, I guess Dragnet can't really date, can it? Because there's nothing like it. So, and I don't know how. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't. It'd be I wouldn't know how to replicate it if I had to kind of, someone said to me, "Can you mix this and make it sound like Dragnet?" I wouldn't know how to. It's a fluke and it's an anomaly, I guess. It's like I said, it's just it's one of my favourite sounding albums.
I think part of it's Mike's drums don't sound like certainly not contemporary drum kits.
Oh right, yeah.
Because he had this sort of premier 60s kind of bottom skins, without getting too muso about it, but they were like goatskin skins that he hadn't changed since, I think Ringo changed his skins in the Beatles more often. But,
he was the rock and roller, wasn't he? He's the rock and roll guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I mean, it really suits that album. But
definitely
part of it.
Yeah. Right.
So, where was the first time you saw the Fall live then, Luke?
Well, I sort of there were two. I saw them sort of live first twice, if you get what I mean. I went to see them.
No, don't get your meaning on that at all.
I'll try to explain. I went. I was like, I think when Hex came out, I was 14, going on 15, and they were playing you. It would have been you, I guess. We're playing. It's weird, isn't it? We're playing. In the Hex tour, I think there was a gig in Southampton. My mum and dad lived with me, obviously, in Portsmouth. And I figured that I would go to the Southampton gig, but I knew that my mum and dad wouldn't let me go because it was a school night, and I'd get back too late or I missed the train or something stupid, but I went anyway. I didn't tell them. I took the train to Southampton, got to Southampton Poly, I think it might have been, tried to buy a ticket. They told me it was over 18s only, and I went home. Yeah. So that was the first. Then the second time was at, I'm not sure what the aim was, but the second time was at Portsmouth Poly, probably about a year later. So I guess it might have been. It wasn't Room to Live. It must have been just before Perverted by Language, because it was the two drummers, and yeah, it would have been, because you were doing stuff. You were doing Eat Yourself Fitter and stuff like that, but hadn't been out yet. Right. That was a fantastic show, and I remember that you came back on and did the classical with the lights on, the house lights on at the end, as everyone was kind of trooping out. And they're about
that got to them.
Yeah.
used to do on this day, curfew here, lads. You're gonna have to get them out. Let's do it on this day for 15 minutes. They'll all be on the bus by the time we get.
yeah. But that was a great gig. There were a lot of people. I remember a lot of people. I don't know if you remember any of this at the time, but there seemed to be a kind of a weird crossover between people who like Gong and Hawkwind that like The Fall as well.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, and there were quite a few people at that Portsmouth Poly gig with tea cozies on their head who were apparently Gong fans.
Well, they'll probably be mates at Grant Showbiz, because he was kind of
here and now.
Yeah, and then Gong and Planet Gong.
Yeah,
all that nonsense. Yeah, because he was. That's how he started off with. What's his name? Is it not Alan? What's his name?
David Allen.
Yeah,
David Allen.
Yeah, David Allen. That's his first.
Steve Village.
Steve Village. Yes, he was. He was his roadie. He was Steve Village's roadie for a while. That's how he got into it. Yeah.
Right.
So it's all his fault.
I spent 2 days in the 90s. For some reason, my band, the Auteurs, were going to get Steve Village to. Well, we did. We got Steve Village to produce us, but we spent 2 days in a studio with him, listening to a click track, and he was completely obsessed with this click track, and he was swearing that it was out of time. All we did was spend 2 days with Steve Village listening to a click track, and then we abandoned the session.
Oh. And how much did that cost, eh? The days of rock and roll excess. Jesus.
It was the 90s. It was the 90s. They were cared about money then.
He wouldn't have been cheap either then, because he was Simple Minds, wasn't he? New Gold Dream. He'd done that, hadn't he?
Was he doing something with the Orb or something like that at that point?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so. I think he was, yeah. But I mean, he was a big producer, wasn't he?
He'd got very into sort of like trancey kind of whatever it is, sort of ravey davey kind of stuff, and I think it had affected his mind a bit.
Because that's
a click track out of time.
It's impossible. You can't.
It is impossible. But not for Steve Village in his brain. It wasn't.
Not for Steve Village at £120 an hour. It wasn't. No.
yeah. I mean, it's a good gig. If it's a good gig, I suppose. Like just listening to a click track.
Saves dirty work, doesn't it?
Yeah. Record some silly band.
This is a terrible segue. This, but if we're talking about things you do to avoid work. Can you expand on the breaking of the ankles to get out of the tour?
Oh. Well, I'm not sure it really was. There are many stories that have been.
You were there.
Quite a lot of them. I was there, yeah. Well, I was there. I also wasn't there. I was there physically, put it like that. But I don't know. I don't know if I was really doing it to get out of work, doing the tour. I think the real reason was that I'd had too much to drink, to be quite honest. I think to bust the myth, such as it is.
Yeah, no. I mean, I was going to ask about myth building and the sort of building a personality, because in the context that we've talked about it in a couple of these with Martin Brahma and. Mark building a personality. Martin has a theory that Mark sort of built this personality and then got kind of stuck into it. So I think, am I right in saying you did the same thing? Was that influenced by Mark, or was that just something you did yourself?
No, I think it's something you do. I think it's just something you do to kind of navigate your way through. And it's something I did when I was. I don't need to do it as much now, because when you get older, you kind of, you're kind of more certain of who you are, and you're kind of a bit more comfortable in your skin. I think.
Yeah.
And so no, in a way, it kind of to kind of do a bit of that. It served me quite well because it's sort of it kind of protected me sort of mentally, I suppose, in a way from all the nonsense of bands,
Yes, there is a fair bit of it, isn't there? Let's face it. Yeah.
And what if you've been doing music a long time, and if you kind of decide to kind of do this kind of stuff, then you do have to protect yourself against the nonsense of bands and everything that kind of goes with it, because you suddenly you start to realise it's all absolute nonsense.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. but I was interested because
I would have liked to create a new persona in 1998.
Right. We're going to get to 1998 in a minute, but I was just
it's never too late, Steve. It's never too late.
Oh, I think it is. No, because I was going to say there's three personalities there for me. There's who you were, the person you were when you were in the Auteurs, and the person who wrote about it in Bad Vibes. Are they three different people then?
Great book.
Well, the Bad Vibes book was very much sort of. I mean, I wrote it as a comedy, which I don't know. I'm not sure. Some people may not have got that, and they thought it was a kind of screed of revenge, which it really wasn't. It was just I wrote it, and I know you've both written books, and it's one of those things. I would get myself. I'd write for 2 hours because my oldest child was at nursery at that point, and he was, so I didn't have much time to write, really. I had about 2.5 hours a day, and I'd sit at my desk and bang this stuff out, and my head would be on the fucking, on the desk laughing.
Yeah. No, I think it's a hilarious book. And I was gonna compare it to Renegade, really. Because I think if Mark had put a bit more effort into it, he could have done something like that. But I don't think. I mean, it was kind of that thing, wasn't it, where it was just.
I thought it was a shame that he didn't write it. It was. I didn't understand why. Why the great Mark E. Smith was not writing his own bloody book. I mean, surely he'd have been the first person to criticise that.
Well, yeah. Well, he was the first person to criticise the book anyway.
Yes, yeah.
There's great interviews where people bring things up that he said about in the book, and he says that never happened. Well, it's your fucking autobiography.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I thought it was a bit of a disappointment because I don't know, because I've read he only seemed to write a few kind of short prosy type things, and the ones I've read were really good and really funny.
He did a great one in there. It was not really a fanzine. It was sort of a bit like Time Out. It was a Manchester one called City Life, and he wrote this short story about being a paper boy.
I remember that. Yeah.
I mean, really good story. And sort of in touch with his childhood self. It was brilliant. But I don't. It's a shame he didn't do more of it, really.
Yeah, it's a bit of a lost opportunity, but maybe it's just been lazy,
Yeah. Well. So the next thing, and you touched on it briefly. It was 1998. So I have it on good authority that you were staying in the same hotel the night of the Brownies gig. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. Yeah. I've met. And this goes back to the kind of, again, the myth-busting thing. And I've met Mark a few times, and he was very... I listened to your podcast with Jim the other week, Jim Martin. He was saying about the... He'd do his like very polite gentleman kind of thing. And he every time I met him, he did that with me. I don't know why. And he'd sort of like tip me a wink and sort of like say, good luck, son.
Yeah.
But I remember we came downstairs in the hotel of that night, and I saw him in the bar, and I was going to go over and sort of say hello. Sort of always cautious to say hello to Mark, you never know what it was going to be. But I could. There was a very dark. I could see something very dark was going on, so I just sort of went eyes forward and went out the door again. And
Good move, that.
Yeah. Give them what we know happens. Yeah.
That was the worst he was.
That was what? Sorry, say that again.
Was that the night of the gig?
I don't know if it was the night of the gig. I don't know how many nights you were there for. Stuart Lee would know this, but it must have been that occasion. Yeah. So yeah.
Blimey. So who's playing you in the film then? That's the question. You'll have to make a cameo in the film whenever it gets made, because Steve says.
Yeah.
Steve, I think Sting's getting on a bit now to play Steve, but you can make a walk-on part.
I'm gonna have Robin Asquith to play me. So.
Brilliant. He turned up in the podcast with Stuart Lee as well. Robin Asquith, bizarrely. He did, yeah. I can't remember what it was now. He said something about. Oh, it was Stuart Lee did an interview with Julian Cope, and Julian Cope said to him,
"Yeah,
if you stick around long enough, you stop being a has-been and you become a legend."
Right.
And then Stuart Lee passed that on to Robin Asquith, and Robin Asquith used it in his eulogy on BBC TV for Barbara Windsor. So there you go.
That's superb. Yeah.
3 degrees of separation from Julian Cope.
He's in the Nightingales documentary, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
What, Robin Asquith?
Yeah.
Is he?
Yes, yeah. I think it's that. I think it's because he's talking about the Nightingales and he quotes the Julian Cope, and then Robin Asquith bizarrely turns up.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, we always have a bit of a problem coming up with titles for these episodes, but I've got the title for this episode. Screamed out at me. Avant-garde hod carriers, I think, would be
It's good though, that one.
It's brilliant. Yeah. If you ever start another band, that's it.
yeah.
But I know what you mean.
That's kind of what I loved about it, because it was sort of like it was saying you can do this. It was saying you can make this. You don't have to be like Michael Bracewell or some twat to do this kind of very kind of complicated, sophisticated art.
Yeah. I mean,
what it strikes me as.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the old. I mean, without disparaging anybody's ability, it's the old monkey throwing bits of paint at a piece of paper.
That's slightly crueler than mine.
The monkey. I don't really mean that. But what I mean is what I always think about the Fall that's kind of unique.
Yeah,
is that they had that all the way through. That kind of that way the plucky kind of amateur. And I'm not. Again, I think
Yeah.
Craig's a brilliant guitarist. Mark Riley's a brilliant guitarist. Steve's an amazing bass player. But there's that thing that nobody gets any better, do they? In the Fall.
No. That's true. And I think we also have this kind of from the sort of late 20th. I mean, I'm not going to start sounding. I hope I don't start sounding like Michael Bracewell, but and from the late 20th century, our ears have become very used to this sort of polished kind of sound, and we're quite used to kind of light entertainment, and we're not used to this really anymore. We're not used to this kind of really kind of gnarly, kind of quite difficult stuff, quite wordy stuff. There's sort of no reason why not, really, because it's more fun. I think.
I mean, you can draw a distinction between sort of gnarly but without being willfully. No. If you know what I mean. Do you know what I mean?
I never thought any of it did sound. It was never sounded willful at all, or it didn't sound. I don't think any of the Fall records sound forced or anything like that. They're just sort of like they're just kind of these. Some of them just sound like barely formed ideas that shouldn't have even been near anyone with sort of any kind of careerism or whatever. And I'm sure Mark did have quite a lot of careerism, but anyone who essentially wanted to make sort of normal sounding records wouldn't have thought once about recording some of those later albums, especially because they're really kind of out there in sort of what a lot of people would find tolerable,
Yeah, definitely, and I think I mean you can look for parallels in different artists who've done it, but I don't think it's difficult because there's not that many artists who've lasted that long. Clearly there isn't, and without ever becoming a heritage act. I mean, Bob Dylan possibly, But there's not.
Yeah,
I mean, if that's how high up you're going to find a comparable artist to Mark E. Smith, who refused to be a heritage act of his own material. That's quite impressive, isn't it?
Oh, very much. Yeah. No, I don't think there's anyone really there like it. Who, I can't think of any comparisons. Not sure. I kind of know what you mean about the Dylan one, but not sure that stands really, because Dylan has been a kind of stadium performer and is a stadium performer, I guess. And the Four were never going to be in any stadium at any point.
He's a stadium performer on his own. On his own terms, isn't he? He's not going out there and giving you, subterranean.
Yes, fair enough. Yeah.
And if he is, you can't recognise it until he's 15 minutes in. True. Because it's in waltz time and it's in a different key and he's singing a different melody line. So there is that. But then again, I think
I call that value for money.
Sorry.
I think that's value for money, isn't it? Value for money. If you go to a Dylan concert, you can't recognise the concert.
I think you get an argument there from a lot of people. But I always have this, and I might be wrong. I always have this thing where, and you were saying a bit about when it gets a bit showbiz. If you're expecting people to pay £100, £125, you're turning. That's not the same thing as going to see a band in a club, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's people want value for money, and it's a big argument in everything these days that instead of going to a gig and one night it's shit and one night it's great, then you used to get it with beer. Yeah. You used to get it with beer. You go in a pub and it'd be undrinkable one night, and then the best thing you've ever had the next night. People don't want that anymore. And it's a shame, I think.
Well, if I'm sort of forced at gunpoint to go and see a band and I have to pay to go and see it, I kind of always want, even if I paid that £50, I don't want them to play for 3 hours. I'm happy with about 30 minutes. That'll do me, So it's kind of, it's kind of what people are kind of used to and all this kind of stuff. And there's an accepted way of doing things. That
you do that a lot, then.
What go to?
By good point.
No, not really. No. In theory. Oh no, I don't because there's been the sort of coronavirus thing. I haven't been out for a long time.
Nobody's been to a gig, have they? So what about playing then? Are you doing that again or? Playing live? Have you any plans to do that? Or are you still in COVID lockdown? Or
no, I'm not. I'm not in COVID lockdown. Steve and I were doing the requisite kind of have you had COVID conversation that everyone must have these days, and I got my bit of COVID for the moment out of the way a couple of weeks ago. So, but hoping I'm doing the tour with Peter Buck in April.
Yes.
Which has been cancelled many times, and I think it's going to happen in April. So we're kind of set for that, and I'm doing all the kind of, as none of us have managers or anything like that. I'm sort of like doing the tour managing as well, which is not fun. But so if we don't turn up any nights, it's entirely my fault. And there you go.
I was going to say because I've just done a recording with the Eyelids. Well, it's not the Eyelids, it's just Eyelids, isn't it? And Peter Buck produces them, I believe.
Oh, right.
Scott McCall here, who I believe he's played with them as well, and he's in your band, isn't he?
He is, yeah. So did you play? Did you meet Scott at all?
Didn't meet anybody. No, they sent me a recording of Fantastic Life.
Oh, okay.
And then I recorded an extra track of drums in my garage.
Yeah. So both Scott and Peter are obviously in. Well, it's not my band; are in the our band. And Scott's great, isn't he? Scott's sort of on the new album. He's playing loads of stuff. He's written a couple of songs, Mellotron and all that kind of stuff. And it's great. Yeah. I'm glad you're doing some stuff with him. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. So how did you get together with Peter Buck? Did you know each other?
No, Peter bought a painting off me. I sell paintings on the internet sometimes, and he stumbled upon one and bought it from me, and then he then sort of emailed me, said, I like a couple of your records. He liked the Baader Meinhof record, and he said, should we do something together? And I was going, yeah, okay. At that point, I think I wasn't doing anything, or I didn't have any plans to do an album at that point, so I threw caution to the wind, as you do, and we just did a record. We did it all all online. As you know, as you said, you've just done something like that because it seems the only way you can do stuff at the moment. And this was prior to COVID, and it was just because he wasn't planning on coming over to the UK at that point, and I wasn't going to the US because it's difficult getting to the US. So that's how it happened, and we've just finished another one, a new one, which is going to be out in October. So
Brilliant. So we're gonna. When are your dates then? Do you want to plug your dates? I'm sure 15 listeners will be.
They'll be noting them down. Yeah. We're doing Glasgow April the 13th, Hebden Bridge the 15th, somewhere else the 16th. Then we're doing London on the 18th and the 19th.
Well, there seems to be something of a gap in this tour. You want to sack your tour manager? Where's Manchester?
It's me. That's me.
I know.
I'm the booker. And no, it's okay. There's like two days off in 5 days.
Right, okay. So where's Manchester then?
Manchester didn't know. Hebden Bridge kind of got in the way of Manchester, and because I booked it. I mean, it's what's quite clever that I've done is I started in Glasgow, and I work all the way down south like a proper tour manager.
Oh, yeah. So you're playing Hebden Bridge, are you? Because that's a great venue, isn't it? Trades Club?
Yes.
I say it's at the Trades Club. No, it's one of the 17 other fantastic venues in Hebden Bridge.
Well, funnily enough, no, it is the Trades Club. Yeah.
It's a great venue, the Trades Club, actually.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. I think it's the third time I played it, so it's good. And that's going to have to kind of suffice, I suppose, for the north to go to that venue.
It's not too far. Well, Steve will have to go because he's got to have a fight with Peter Buck about whether we did the old grey whistle test on the same day or not. There's some kind of disputes, isn't there, Steve?
Oh yeah. Well, if either of you want to come along, let me know, and I'll put you on a paying guest list.
That'll do.
I am, of course, kidding.
No, that's fair enough.
We did do the old grey whistle test on the same day.
Well, he has no memory of it.
I'm sure you and Peter may have similar discrepancies in memory. I don't know. I suspect it's one that won't get kind of solved.
Yeah, well, we did the old grey whistle test. We had this massive row at the end of a tour, and Steve and I both left on the same day, separately.
Oh, was that the one with Michael Clark?
Yes, it was. That's right. Yeah. So, but then that was already booked, and it was quite a prestigious thing in those days.
Yeah.
They got us. Mark got us back to do that, and then it was kind of the last thing I did with the fall. Well, I went back briefly later on, but so that was a bit of a strange atmosphere all around that day. And then, of course, we thought we were just doing it, and then Michael turned up with his troupe and his pantomime cow, and that's quite the performance.
It certainly is, yeah. I mean, it was the talk. I was at art college at that point, and it was the talk. It was the talk of the refectory.
Talk of the move.
Yeah. Because how much Marky Smith would have hated that sentence.
Yes, indeed. Yes, because I've got a quote from you that you consider the I Am Curious Orange ballet a high point of Western culture.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, come on. I mean, it's got to be. I mean, it's like the fall, Michael Clark sort of doing a ballet.
Doing a ballet about King William of Orange.
And sadly, it's something I didn't get to see. Which is one of my few regrets, really. I think it's like it's the collision of everything. Great, really. What more do you want? Now, or what more do you want out of life? I think
you'll be able to answer this. Why is there no film of that, Stu?
Why is there no film? I don't know. It's just before all that, wasn't it?
Right.
There was people. I do remember people being around with video cameras, but nobody thought to.
No, but I'm not talking about people doing it on the phones or any of that.
No,
but you'd think somebody would have recorded that for posterity.
Yeah. Because think of things like, I suppose, if you think something like I mean, it might have been a bit of a bigger thing, I suppose. I don't know, but that's something like songs for Drella was recorded, and it was kind of I was seeing kind of that kind of being in the same sort of level in a way, that someone. It does seem strange that someone didn't record it. And a bit of a missed opportunity.
It's a terrible missed opportunity. I think
it is
because I mean it was a big thing in Michael Clark's career as well. And you reckon it's the best thing, your best memories of the fall, Steve, don't you?
One of the best, yeah. Such a great thing to work on, yeah. It was, yeah.
You didn't. I mean, it was on for a while, wasn't it?
Oh, we did the 5 nights in Amsterdam, we did 5 nights in Edinburgh at the festival, and then we did 21 nights in Sadler's Wells. Was
it all sold out?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not one person brought a sodding video camera.
Not one.
The British public are terrible, aren't they?
Shocking. The Dutch public aren't much better. She was at that, wasn't she? Wasn't the Queen of the Netherlands at the...
She was.
I think you said the Queens.
The Queens of the Netherlands. Well, they were all in it.
Of course they were, yeah. But I remember it seemed like a very big thing at the time, and it was kind of, obviously, the music press was kind of quite big at that time, and it seemed to be the Fall always seemed to be in it at that point, and that seemed like the kind of apex of their kind of, I suppose, the sort of like the Bricks kind of commercial kind of years. I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I never saw it either. I did. Unfortunately, I was unlucky enough to see Hey Luciani.
You saw
that?
I saw that. I'm not surprised. I think if anybody recorded that, they probably taped over it, didn't they? With Match Today.
I think there are bits of that.
Oh no, there's no recording of that.
I know.
I think there's snippets of it. I think
bits, yeah, but
I mean, there are recordings. They're still coming to light of fall gigs. There are recordings of taped through the letterbox at the Band on the Wall, and there is no audio recording of Hey Luciani.
It's strange, isn't it? Yeah,
it's I think it's cursed. I think.
Yes.
No, there's audio recordings, but there's no.
Is there? Are you sure?
Yeah. There's that album that came out, I Am Pure as Orange.
No, I'm talking about Hey Luciani now.
Oh, no.
There's no audio recording that, which I find bizarre.
Probably.
I'm not too upset about it, but.
Steve could reenact it for you, perhaps.
Yeah. I've got my Pope suit out.
Steve played. You played John Paul II, didn't you, Steve?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Superb, yeah. Maybe get a second run at it. I mean, put it on again. Do you think you could? Would you be up for doing the Pope bit again, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the pregnant pause, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was a no.
Yeah. If everybody could find all the fag packets that Mark wrote the script on.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I always found that video stuff really difficult.
Making videos.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a funny old world, all that, isn't it? I mean, we were doing them in the 90s where, and I was on a major label at the time, and like the catering budget would be like the price, of like about sort of 6 albums. It's absolutely ludicrous.
The amount of money that must have been wasted in those days.
Oh man.
Well, there were all these sort of like, suddenly there are all these kind of journalists who sort of like decided to leave the NME or so and set up little video production companies because they suddenly realised there was this kind of, there was a brief bit in the market where they could kind of like, come away with about 80, 90 grand for some rubbish band
filming. Yeah.
It's a strange time, all of that.
It was mad, wasn't it? The amount of money because I know it's an old cliche and everybody talks about it, but why come none of the bands realised it was their money? That's the thing I can't work out.
Well, I'm not. I think that I can't remember how it plays out, but I think it was. I think in my contract it was something like 2/3 of the video budget was recoupable. No. Sorry, the other way around. 2/3 of it was promotion, and then 1/3 was recoupable. So promotion was something the record company had to pay for. But of course, you had to pay for everything else, like like tour support and all those kind of things. You get, in those days, you get tour support, which for anyone who doesn't know, that basically means that the record company pay in, or not the record company, but you pay in via the record company the shortfall of your tour.
Bloody hell, later.
Which a lot of the time, which kind of in the 90s, when a lot of bands maybe didn't realise kind of what was going on, would be kind of like, sleeper buses and all this kind of thing, where you didn't really need it, and stupid hotels, and all this kind of nonsense. Yeah. I remember Steve Albini sort of. I mean, I can say this is okay, but kind of laughing at the wedding present, because they were on I think they were on RCA at this point, and they were very proudly telling him that, well, but it's okay because when we go on tour, we only kind of hire like a minibus, and we all sleep in the same room. And he was kind of like, they don't fucking care.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not sure though that wasn't a bad idea, to be honest. Is it? But
well, yeah, I think it was kind of showing. I think it was a kind of them showing willing that they wouldn't be able to.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Right, okay. Yeah, we had him on recently. Steve Albini. He was very entertaining. We did. Yeah, and he spent a lot of the time talking about public transport. And how impressed he is with British public transport compared to American public transport.
Was that to do with that the line in 50-Year-Old Man then?
Yes, that's how we got onto it. Yeah. It wasn't quite how I thought it was going to go. When I mentioned that he'd been mentioned in the Fall song, that they spent the next half an hour talking about trains. But there you go.
Yeah, no, that sounds like him. Yeah. Did he have any? I mean, I could ask him myself, but I'll ask you as you're here. But did he have anything to say about that line other than kind of like diverting it, as it were, to the trains?
I mean, I think he was quite proud to be. Yeah. I don't think he quite knows why. To be honest, he says he probably somebody just talking to Mark and Mark turned it into some. Somebody says something about Steve Albini. I think it was that somebody mentioned Steve producing The Fall, and Mark would have none of it. So I think that's what it was, because I think Steve's expressed an interest in support. Producing The Fall at one time, but not to Mark, or not. I think it was just somebody asked him. So
no, that would have been good, wouldn't it? Steve
Albini. It'd been great. Well, Mark Riley always reckons they should get Steve Albini to remix Live at the Witch Trials.
Wow, yeah. I had a thing. Well, I mean, they're not going anymore, but I always wanted Status Quo to do an album with Steve Albini.
Yeah,
I thought that could be really good, because people can laugh at Quo.
Yeah,
but if you kind of got them, if someone had got them, if they were smart enough, and they weren't, if you got them to do their kind of their greatest hits, but re-record them with Steve Albini, that'd be a great album.
Yeah, well, they kind of made that, because they kind of made that decision to do anything, didn't they? Really, Status Quo.
Yeah,
keep the profile. I mean, they did like that daft thing with Man United, and that kind of. So but which I hesitate to say the word credible, but they kind of. They were sort of that early sort of 70s down the dust pipe kind of thing.
Oh, I think they from the I mean, I wasn't obviously that was before my time, but it does seem like it was credible. They seem like they were probably credible till the kind of mid 70s or something like that, or until they did that Rocket Over the World or something like that.
Yeah.
Where it kind of became, they're not our Quo anymore.
No. I mean, you can't blame them in a lot of ways, can you?
No. Good band though.
The next thing I was going to ask you about is the Christmas tree.
Oh yeah.
And who's higher? There's a big point I want to know: is who's higher up the tree, me or Steve? I bet Steve near the top. Is it?
I am.
Well, let me. Hey, hold on. No fighting, lads. Hold on. There was when I was setting it up for the first time in the Eston Arts Centre, and I hadn't done it before. It's because I'd just painted all the baubles, so I hadn't really thought about who. Obviously, Mark was at the top of the tree.
Oh, yeah.
It was quite obvious that there was a sort of like beneath that there was a first tier, and I'm proud to say that you two were both on the first tier, and I thought the first tier would have been Carl, Craig, obviously. Martin Brammer was on that. Kay Carroll, probably. Who else?
It's not a test. You don't got to name everybody. It's all right.
No, I'm not going to. Yes. Dave Travis, Alan Natchkey. So you were all pretty much on the. It's like that Steve Coogan joke. No one died.
How did you come to the 66 people?
Well, there were some people that were just that I took. They were, this is a very difficult question. There were some,
it is, yeah. That's why you asked it.
Yeah. Some people who I didn't, as the artist, didn't consider to be sort of properly in the fall, and also there were some people who there's absolutely seemed to be no photographic evidence at all of. They weren't always the people you think of. Some of these were people in some of the later lineups.
Right. Okay. So where's it now? The tree? Is it still in the gallery? Is it still on show?
It's still at the gallery because no one is insane enough to pay $6,000 for it.
You hear it first, people. If anybody, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be very useful because other than I don't mind having it in my house at Christmas, but if anyone does want to take it off my hands,
you're not asking your kids to put your presents under that tree with all us lot. I'm sure
that'd be great. Yeah, superb. Yeah. I was actually very. I mean, it certainly. It's certainly a lot of people were kind of interested in it, not in a financial way, of course, but just in a kind of looking at it way. And it was. Sort of, I mean, the weird thing was that it had been a couple of Christmases ago. At a loss to kind of find a present for some friends of mine, I just got a bauble and painted a Marquis Smith on it so they could put it on their tree as a kind of like a token present. And my wife said, it'd be a good idea if you painted all the members of the Fall. And I said, that is a very good idea. But
was she trying to get rid of you for a period of time?
Well, I mean, obviously there is that. Yes. Yeah. These things have, they have other dimensions to them.
Yeah, I said do you too, but it only took him 15 minutes, so I had to find somebody with more.
Yeah. But then a guy, Neil, in Eston, during COVID, asked me if I wanted to do an exhibition and did I have any ideas. And I thought, well, I'll do the Fall tree then. So,
brilliant. Yeah. The other part of that was the wrestling, wasn't it? You did the wrestling for that.
Yes, yeah, that's part of it. That's kind of to do with an album I did a few years ago.
Yeah.
So it kind of all somehow it all tied in with each other. But it was wrestlers and members of the Fall on a Christmas tree.
Because that's the thing. The generational thing of the wrestling, wrestling, WWE now, it's massive, isn't it? And it's quite, money and...
That answers a question of mine.
Oh, yeah?
When I Googled Luke Haines wrestling.
Yeah, you didn't do it?
No. No, not yet.
No, Kendo Nagasaki took him out with a...
Well, I did receive some correspondence from Mr. Nagasaki.
Did you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
wow.
When the album came out, I got an email, kind of out of the blue, it was from a representative of Mr. Nagasaki, saying Mr. Nagasaki has seen your current work, and although he cannot personally endorse it, he wishes you the best of luck.
He cannot personally. He's not the Pope. He's not the Queen. Peter Blake's painted Kendo Nagasaki as well.
He has. Have you seen that program?
Yeah.
It's good, isn't it?
Because the thing about that, I have a memory of him being unmasked, Kendo Nagasaki, but not
he was.
Not in a fight. He did it himself, or his manager did it, or some kind of ceremony in the ring.
Yeah, he does it. He does it himself with two kind of it's kind of like, well, they're not really samurais, but two guys dressed as. They're not really, no.
Well, Japanese for a start.
They break it to you. But he does it. These two guys is like surround. They do this like stupid ritual thing, and he's got this weird sort of symbol on his head. and they pull off the mask, and he's got kind of like contact lenses in, to make his eyes all black.
Yes, right, cool.
It's on YouTube, the unmasking.
Oh, I'll have to have a look for that, because it was quite the thing that Saturday evening. Without getting jumpers for Gold Coast Old English Spangles, that kind of. That Saturday evening wrestling, what I was going to say, that's turned into like the money making, because it's kind of based on that. The WWE American thing is based on the British wrestling.
Well, the British wrestling was kind of going for sort of about 20 years, really, before, because it was just like, I've got old posters and stuff from, it started just after the war, basically.
Yeah.
It was, I suppose it's kind of, if you think about it, it's like a really kind of good, cheap entertainment, isn't it, for people to put on? Because it doesn't cost that very much to get a couple of fellas, slightly out of shape fellas, wrestling each other.
What are you saying? Big Daddy was at the height of his...
That was almost, I was defaming Big Daddy. Of course, he's a fine athlete. But,
anybody could think that him getting into a ring to have a fight, you don't have to punch him in the stomach.
Yeah. Well, I was even when I was young watching it, I was sort of a bit worried for their health, because they didn't look like giant haystacks. Was kind of puffing away.
Yeah.
He didn't look too far from a heart attack.
No, not at any point. No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I don't think I ever watched that wrestling on a Saturday afternoon and was worried about their health.
I don't know. Some of the tell you what,
I'm a southerner, you see. So
Adrian Street used to draw blood when he pulled what's his name's hair. The other guy.
Oh God, yeah.
He did.
I kind of met Adrian Street on this this kind of well, it was a thing I did with the artist Jeremy Deller made made a film about Adrian, and
the mining thing, yeah.
And his wife was with him, his wife Linda. Now on the album, there's a song called Linda's Head, which is it's sort of about. It's Linda's head in the Lou Reed sense. It's kind of sort of about oral sex.
Yeah.
And Adrian made me sing this song to his wife, presumably not knowing. His wife was about 70.
He must have been cracking on by then. Adrian Street, mustn't he?
Well, yeah, he's probably in his 70s. But it was a very strange situation. Me singing a song of wanting Adrian Street's 70-year-old wife to perform oral sex on me in front of an audience. So,
could happen. You never know. Has he still got the hair, Adrian Street? Has he?
No.
Yeah, lovely hair, didn't he?
He did have lovely hair. Yeah.
That's great. That Jeremy Deller thing with the he was a mining family, wasn't
he? Mick Ronson.
Yes. Yeah.
Mick Ronson hair. Yeah, he did have Mick Ronson hair. Yeah.
He did. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that photo is about 1972 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of he's pretty on there. Yeah. But obviously it's his dad in the
right. Stood next to him. Yeah. But that's really that sort of brickies with makeup on glamour. The glam thing. Brilliant.
Yeah. He's made quite a few records as well, Adrian. Have you ever heard them? His records.
I cannot say I've ever heard an Adrian Street record.
Me neither.
I probably don't bother.
Well, he looks the part. Can he play the solo from Gene Genie? He must.
he made some records in the late 70s, early 80s. It kind of sounds like Dick Emery sort of backs with the band who did the theme to Minder.
Now you're selling this well, like that. That's not the kind of thing that would put me off, to be honest.
No, that's the kind of thing I quite like. So,
yeah, definitely. Right, so we've had Adrian Street, we've had Robin Asquith, we've had Dick Emery. So we've got all the highlights of the 70s, really.
We have, yes, yeah.
Okay, well, I think on that note, I think we're going to have to wrap it up. I think we've reached the end of our hour.
Okay, all right.
That's very, very good of you. I really enjoyed that, and I will try and get along to Hebden Bridge. That was great.
Please do. I'll bother you both with an email nearer the time. And
yes, please do, because like I say, Stephen, let's go have it out with Peter Buck about.
I'd like to see that. Yeah.
Jesus, hey, tell you what, that them two going at it, I'd make giant like a fighter, wouldn't it?
Good.
Right. Leslie, that was brilliant. Thank you very, very much indeed.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, you.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us this week at Oh Brother. Episodes are released every second Monday, so watch for the next episode in 2 weeks. Please follow us on Twitter at Oh Brother Show, where you can find a link to Spotify and subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher or RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, give us a rating on iTunes. Subscribe on YouTube or just tell your friends. For further reading, you can check out our books about the fall. Big Midweek and Have a Bleeding Guess from Root Publishers and all good bookstores. If you haven't already, I would encourage you to seek out Luke's writing too, it's brilliant. Hope to speak to you all again soon, and remember, if you're driving, take your car. Ta-da!